my senior design project, we have to do a little bit of cryptography in it. And our project is based on a previous body of work done by the students who came before us, like last year's seniors. And they had to do like their own cryptography method, not like their own method, but what they did is like, they obviously didn't finish the project. So we were looking at the code that they already put out for us. Like our professor, our advisor gave it to us and they're like, all right, this is what you have to work off of. And we were reading it to see like where they left off. And their cryptography method was literally like change 1 to A, 2 to B, and then like all the numbers, it's like 1 through 9. And then like certain symbols just get changed to letters. And it's like, wow.
This shit encrypted.
And the fact that they're out in like the professional world somewhere.
Did they even
so
try?
Well, it's like, I think they kind of just left it as a proof of concept. Like there could be an actual algorithm there, but they just left it as a proof of concept because they either didn't want to do the work or they didn't have enough time. Because honestly, they don't give us a lot of time to actually do this. But it's just so
how long
funny.
do you have for that?
We are supposed to do all the planning first semester, and then we're supposed to actually do the project second semester.
Okay.
So like we had since, I mean, honestly, we could have started last semester, maybe like middle of the semester when we actually got the project, but you're not supposed to officially start until the semester begins because then they give you time.
You know how college works. When a deadline's given, it's the last day you start working on it.
Well, with the project as like a capstone or senior design project, it's like you kind of have to start working on it because of how big the project actually is.
I haven't done any capstone or senior design things yet, and I'm not excited to do it.
Well, have you even done junior seminar or anything?
No.
So you got to start on that path first.
Do you have to do a junior seminar?
I don't know.
Oh, in math we do.
Do you have to do a capstone project too?
I know.
I have a senior project. Yeah,
you have to do junior and senior.
I know. As mechanical engineering, we have to do a capstone project for sure.
Yeah, because we have a lot of crossover. So like any engineering has to work. There's a lot of projects that do both computer, electrical, comp sci, and mechanical engineering. They do a lot of.
I think I might end up working with like some physics majors as well with my stuff.
You guys have a lot of crossover too. I mean, the only crossover that we really have is electrical.
Mechanical engineering is just a really weird kind of major itself. It's very super broad. It's a lot like electrical engineering. It's like anything that deals with electricity. You're like, someone probably can do that somewhere in this major.
It's a lot crossing a lot of streams, so to speak.
Yeah.
You're basically like a fill in the blanks type of engineer where there's like civil, which is basically city planning and everything that has to do with it. There's like material science and stuff, which does the actual materials as in the name. And then electrical and computer are very, I guess, hand in hand, but they're both dealing with like the actual electronics and electrical components. And then aerospace is obviously planes, aeronautics and stuff. And then there's just mechanical engineering, which is literally anything that moves or anything dealing with a machine.
It's got energy. We do it.
Welcome to another Thought Podcast.
I'm Alex.
I'm Zane.
Anthony.
I'll take a guess. You don't want to be Anthony today?
No, I'll be Anthony.
Okay.
I accept it.
Let's address the elephant in the room.
Ukraine?
The ongoing war with Russia.
I blame Ukraine.
Oh my God.
The thing that I want to point out first is like, obviously it's very fresh news. So
very fresh,
that we say
very topical.
Here is just, shooting the shit essentially.
Yeah.
But I don't want to touch on the fact of like mostly what's going on over there. I wanted to talk mostly about how Americans have been like perceiving this event. Because that's, I think, the thing that's angered me the most in all of this. It's just like, I understand memes in general. Like you're going to make fun of shit that's going on in the world anyways.
I literally just said, I blame Ukraine.
But there have been people who have said like way more heinous shit than that. Like that's kind of
enough. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. People making like very deliberate jokes on this scenario don't understand the full, I guess, atrocity of the entire situation. Not only, I mean, it's like people make 9/11 jokes all the time. And that's the thing is like, there's a certain amount of time before it's like, okay to make these kinds of jokes. Cause then it's considered history. Where you want to draw that line, I guess it's completely up to you. But I think that
at least usually rule of thumb is wait till the event's over.
Yeah, wait till we're not doing this today. Like 2 hours ago, bombings like headlining the news.
I think it depends on the joke. Like whoever's the butt of the joke. If Ukraine's the butt of the joke, then I think it's probably bad. Or like Ukrainian citizens or civilians, that's super bad. But like if Russia's the butt of the joke, fuck it. I don't really care.
See, the thing is,
I think it's okay.
I understand that, but personally, I don't see that as like, it's still not a laughing matter because of the fact that it's like,
it's ongoing.
It's still like a part of the war, you know? I mean, as much as like
it's
Russia
all
is
just
to blame.
propaganda. The memes are new age propaganda of the internet age.
Well, most people get their political opinions from memes.
Yeah, they do.
At least Zoomers do.
And I get it's topical and people are going to make memes about whatever is topical too, but it's just one of those like, it's like an internet etiquette kind of thing where it's not something you should be making memes about the second it happens.
But that's the thing about the internet is they don't give a fuck. And there's there's so many people who deliberately make the worst jokes possible, you know, like dude, like there's a whole subreddit built around it. Like it's just so fucking toxic.
There was someone in my senior design group sent me a picture of people because we were talking about this earlier.
Dismembered bodies.
No, not going that far. It was a Sam Hyde meme. It was like a picture of an ID of a fallen soldier in Luhansk, and it was a picture of Sam Hyde like on the picture, and his name was like Seaman Hydensky or something. And I'm like, it's funny, but it's not funny. It's like I laughed, but I don't want to laugh about it. It's
you
not
hate yourself for laughing.
If this meme came like several years after the event, I would be okay like sharing it and sending it to people. But that was just an example of what he was saying. Like, you show me pictures of people on Reddit going like, Tony Stark died, like half, it's protecting the world, half the world. God. Some fucking Infinity War.
Yeah, kind of weird how Tony Stark brought everyone back except Russia.
Yeah, he was like, this is what we do when we bring when half the world. It's like, shut the fuck up. This is not a Marvel meme moment.
No.
Certified
and I see
Marvel
that
meme.
I've been scouring Reddit. I've been doom scrolling Reddit and Twitter, which is like the prime source of all these super cringe comments. And I've seen a lot of people, mention the fact that this is just a horrible time for these kinds of jokes to surface.
Yeah.
And I agree. And I also agree with what you said, Anthony, where it's just like, some of them can be funny. And I do agree that, some of the memes are funny and there is like a correct way to do it, whether it's in like lightheartedness or something that's, very directly mean or in bad taste.
Some people just have not based humor.
People just don't have good jokes. It's only okay if it's a good joke.
They got bad opinions and their jokes stem from their bad opinions.
That's a whole separate realm. That's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah.
Would you guys consider the pandemic peace times? Because we've never lived in like a period of not war.
The pandemic was, peace times is... It's subjective, I guess, in that case.
The thing is it's super relative because even throughout the pandemic, like there were
tensions rising.
Well, there were escalations of other conflicts that America wasn't directly involved with, like interest wise, like the genocide in Yemen, Afghanistan at the time,
Syria still going on.
Syria's still going on. China and India are like butting heads. Fucking, there's a civil war in Ethiopia and some other shit in Somalia. Like, there's never been peace.
No.
Maybe generally like peace, like it's gotten
overarching
better.
Peace.
Overarching peace, like
relative
the general
peace
trend
is what we're looking for.
Because like people in Europe were killing each other like crazy all the time.
Oh yeah.
Back in like fucking 1400s or whatever, 1300s.
Like late medieval ages.
Yeah, they were going insane.
Just like, fuck it.
Yeah, they were like putting fucking heads on pikes and shit. They were going crazy.
Yeah, in general, the world's, I don't think ever is really going to find peace. Although this is having a modern day event as large as this.
Yeah, this one's like more large scale.
Well, the thing is too, like we've seen events like this before. It's just like, it's because it's Europe that it's something is a little bit more like
I kind of don't enjoy being of draftable age going through this event.
Yeah.
I think
don't care unless we get directly involved.
Yeah, I think it's unlikely that there would be a draft. Like we have a really big military, and I don't even think like Biden really wants to commit like boots on the ground there. I could be wrong. I know that we have planes and shit over there.
He's sending troops through like other European countries. Like he sent some to Germany. He sent some to I think like France and then also Ukraine.
Contain the chaos, essentially.
Well, it's just like provide support, essentially. Yeah. I don't think they're made to be there to actually support the fight or anything. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what the actual purpose of them being there is, but as long as we're not like mobilizing troops.
Yeah. And Putin keeps like threatening nuclear shit. And I don't know if he'll pull the trigger. Like there's no way like someone would be that fucking
You already find some fucking wood right the fuck now.
I have a book right there. I have the Dune book. There you go. It's paper.
I guess it's paper.
It's I mean, the thing is the whole geopolitical discourse following these events was always like, he's not going to actually invade. He's not going to actually do this until he did. And then everyone was like,
a lot of people on Twitter were saying, like a lot of like left-leaning people on Twitter, especially, at least from what I saw, were saying like, he's not going to invade. There's no way. He's just like doing whatever. But like the Biden intelligence and shit, like they were saying, you know, like it's kind of imminent, like an invasion is going to happen.
Yeah. And people were saying, I kind of agree with both,
watch what you say.
Sentiments here.
He's being a centrist.
No. What I'm going to say is like, I obviously understand the distrust in American governments. They're going to try to like, not really warmonger, but they're going to try to, well, it's not, I guess it can be considered gaslighting, but they're going to be saying as much as possible to kind of get people against
within their own interest
party.
I mean, it all depends, right? Because it's like it matters if the war is beneficial or not. You know what I mean?
Information is spread based on whoever's best interest is, you know, like telling the information, you know?
And also especially like in periods of like high tensions like this, information is bad. Like a lot of the times, like the whole like, weapons of mass destruction in Iraq shit. Like a lot of people blame Bush and Cheney because of their intelligence agency that they made. And that's absolutely correct to like blame them, because they did like bring like a lot of jingoism and like fucking bloodthirstiness to Americans.
Jingoism?
Yeah. They were being jingos.
What is the definition?
They're going crazy.
So yeah, I mean that's basically like, the sentiment that I'm
what
saying.
I was gonna say is that also Saddam Hussein lied about having weapons of mass destruction. Mm-hmm. Like he claimed himself that, you know, he had like.
You really think Putin's lying?
No, obviously not. They have like one of the biggest. I think America has a bigger arsenal, but like you could end the. Like you don't need the whole arsenal.
End the war, or
you can end the world with like a fraction.
You could do it with 20 or something. Like
20?
I mean, three is not enough.
The idea.
I'm looking it up. How many nukes would it take to wipe out the Earth?
Well, there's probably like good places to nuke. Like what if you nuked the Yosemite super volcano?
Start the ground shaking. Yeah. All you need is an ignition.
At that point, that's like you don't give a shit about anything. Like everything needs to go.
That's just scorched earth.
That's mad.
You're just like, I'm going out with a bang.
Yeah.
It's kind of that fear right now because you don't really know what he is capable of doing, since everyone was so, I guess, under the impression that he wasn't going to do this, and then it was just baiting because of the fact that NATO was like backing Ukraine in this kind of scenario. You know. Yeah. They weren't going to go to war over something like this. And we don't even know that now. Yeah. Going forward into the future, they could totally declare war, which would be horrible.
Yeah. It all depends on like Russia's ambitions. Like I think a lot of people, and I think I could be wrong, but Putin might have said this himself, but like he wants to like bring back like the Russian Federation.
Yeah, he went on like an entire Trump ramble where he was just like, I want to restore like the Soviet Union to its I guess literal former glory. Like he's literally an old man rambling.
He's talking about like culture and shit with his like, we need to take back Ukraine. They're part of us.
Yeah. And he's doing that with a lot of other countries too. And like the point that I'm trying to make is like he has puppet states, or well, not puppet states in the actual literal definition, but like, you know, Belarus is literally helping Russia do this. There's like confirmed troops from Belarus in Ukraine.
Dude, there are unironically people coming out like pro Putin.
Oh,
and
no. I've always been super confused about how Putin has like such a high favorability. Yeah. His PR team are fucking gods.
Dude, even in Russia, he's not like, he's pretty popular, but there's a large like counterculture against him.
There's big anti-war protests happening in like Moscow and St. Petersburg and stuff.
Like the general public of Russia doesn't want war. It's literally just the government that are like, we need this. We need the Soviet Union back.
I need land.
Yeah. And it's dumb.
Yeah. I think those sorts of ambitions will probably drive towards NATO, like
NATO intervention,
escalating the conflict in some way, because like it's like fundamentally what's the word, like illiberal in the international relations sense, like meaning that Russia doesn't care about like interacting and cooperating with countries.
Yeah, and
they just kind of care about getting what they want on the world stage and like annexing whoever the fuck they want and just taking whatever.
What's particularly scary is the entire events leading up to this. Well, not like since 2014 and everything, but since the past months, he's been kind of inching towards this. Mm-hmm. And what we've done is essentially just put sanctions on the country.
He's been edging us for a little while.
Yeah. And then now that he's actually enacted an invasion, he just gets harsher sanctions.
Yeah.
So depending on whether or not this actually hurts his country enough for him to be like, okay, maybe this wasn't a good idea. I don't think he necessarily cares about the sanctions, because I think it's pretty obvious that he doesn't care about the general well-being of the public of Russia.
Yeah, well, I honestly viewed this as more like a testing the waters kind of move. It's because he's choosing to,
until he did the invasion. Yeah, I think so.
Even with the invasion, I still think he's testing, like he's feeling out, the competition essentially, because he's only attacking like fucking.
Well, he was like attacking the capital.
Yeah, he's in like Ukraine
right now. Oh shit!
So,
okay.
like,
I'm not super caught up with it. I'm only informed by porn Twitter, and if it's made its way to porn Twitter, it's probably pretty bad. So
it's affected porn Twitter. It's affected anime Twitter. So like they're going.
Oh no! Of course it's gonna affect anime Twitter. Come on.
Yeah, that's true.
What do you expect?
The Coomers and Weebs of Ukraine need to band together.
They will stop. They're gonna intervene.
Take out your katanas. Strike down 2 men.
Did you see the thing about the Japanese ambassador to Ukraine, like getting his old grandfather's samurai armor and like sword and shit?
He was like, I'll fight on the front line.
Ukraine. I don't know if he actually said that with like full sentiment, but it was interesting to see, because it's like, I mean, it's interesting seeing other countries kind of stand with Ukraine too.
Yeah, and
hopefully it spawns some sort of camaraderie around the world. And
I think most people support Ukraine in this. Yeah. I don't know where China stands, but that's basically the only country that I'm like.
I think China has signaled support for Russia. I think so.
I mean, it makes sense.
They have some.
They've always been kind
ties.
of
yeah. As long as it doesn't turn out to be a world war and more like a war against. Or a world against one region.
But like the thing is that one region has a fuck ton of nukes.
Hey,
so it's like,
yeah.
I mean, you guys can stay, but
Oh yeah, but what I was gonna say earlier is that like, it's kind of hard because like, what else can you do that won't escalate tensions, but can still punish Russia for doing what it's doing?
Yeah.
It's like sanctions are kind of like
it's really the only move.
It's like the liberal route.
We're going to fine you.
Yeah.
But I'm commending them for it. I think it's probably the safest move. But the problem is like,
what the fuck does a sanction entail, by the way?
Like they're economic sanctions. So like they will prevent certain exports from being allowed to go to Russia.
Okay.
They will. And if you have like strong allies, right? Like we're partnered with the EU and a lot of other countries.
You're just cutting off a lot of supplies and stuff, essentially.
They don't have access to a lot of banks.
You don't get your rations today.
And also like their banking system has been kind of cut off from a lot of other people.
As long as if Sweden is like no bank, and then Russia's over.
Well, the thing is Russia has a lot of oil and shit, and so like they
still have like a good control of resources that they can like siphon out.
They could probably. I mean,
they do require a lot of otherworldly resources, other national resources.
Oh my god, also, gas prices are gonna go fucking bonkers.
I don't think we get a lot of our gas from Russia.
We don't.
Oh, thank God.
Because I don't think they even have. They don't even expand on how much gas they actually have. Like the amount of natural gas in Siberia is so much more than they're actually siphoning out.
Man, I just hope that people don't start panic buying toilet paper.
Fuck, dude. If it escalates anymore, people will. It's going to be so much panic in America without the war ever actually being here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's so scary.
We're not even
I shit myself. I need the toilet paper.
And that's the thing too. That's another thing I wanted to bring up too. Is like America's so fearful of any conflict that like just so vaguely involves us.
We are so
even though we do get involved in a lot of foreign affairs, it's still like we don't need to worry about anything right now until I mean, obviously we need to worry about the actual crisis going on, but in terms of our own lives, it's like there's not much we can really do besides just support.
America on its home front has always just been like shitting their pants while simultaneously just being actual apes on the forefront. It's like we get involved late. And when we get involved, everyone's like, oh my God. Oh. Yeah. Meanwhile, we're just fucking, carpet bombing these fucking random ass people.
It's because we're like so disconnected from everything, like geographically. You know what I mean? Like in Europe, like all those countries are like super close together. They have like a lot of shared culture and history. You know, they've fought in battles in the past and everything. And like America's way the fuck over here. Doesn't even have to participate if it really doesn't want to.
Hey
like
guys,
a big reason why we even got involved in World War II is because Hitler was trying to collaborate with Mexico. You know what I mean? Like, and
also
obviously
we got bombed.
Yeah, that too. But like, you know, it takes a lot to like push America into like a conflict sometimes, because like even like with 9/11, we fucking went crazy, or
we went fucking ape on that shit.
Yeah, we did. And people are still insane about that shit. They're still super like
never forget
anti-Islam and everything.
They're just like the veins are popping out of their neck.
Those gosh darn Muslims.
So much.
They're too busy praying to give me my burger.
I feel like America's isolation has both worked for and against it, because it spawns a bunch of, it does indeed support a lot of like nationalistic ideas and strong ties to the country, but also you're isolated from all this exposure to culture, despite us being a melting pot, supposedly.
Because we have a lot of anti-immigrant propaganda in the country.
Yeah,
it's like we kind of don't, it's like we want to be someone who's so inclusive, but we don't actually have anything that's inclusive.
We are kind of like the global police force. We're racist, and you know,
to be fair, people are extremely racist in Europe. Like, against like the Roma people and like Middle Eastern immigrants, like they are fucking crazy too. So it's like, I
mean, look at their sports, you know.
Yeah, true. Actually, true.
If they hate each other, why would they hate? Why would they like anyone else?
Yeah, if you go into fucking England and you look at like the 15 different local football clubs, they're all like going insane at each other.
Yeah,
barking and biting, nibbling.
Nibbling.
So yeah,
nibble on your earlobe, bro.
Obviously, this isn't the first like major geopolitical event that we've seen in the past couple of years. I mean, the whole Afghanistan situation, I think, was something that was very weighted in the world stage. But
I feel like America handled that more calmly than like
I think we handled it well.
Yeah, I feel like the public is taking a worse stance on something that we're less involved in.
It's tankies. Yeah, quite literally. They're like, it's like they can't admit that Russia was like quite literally warmongering, and like he was, as you said before, testing the waters to see how far he can actually get before, so he could see that we weren't actually going to start a World War III, because Russia knows that NATO isn't going to get involved unless he does something drastic. So he's going to try to keep it, you know, as I don't want to use this word, but I guess it's the only word. He needs to keep it as possible.
He needs to keep it a small scale skirmish between Ukraine.
Yeah, he wants to
and if it escalates any further than that, then other people are forced to get involved. He knows very much exactly what he's doing. Yeah, and it's kind of scary because just put any smart person in a position of power, they can do essentially whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah, especially with how many or how big his military is, and how, I mean, he's basically like in America with how much they spend on military. This is pretty much what they've been spending for since the Soviet Union's collapse.
How long is he in office for? Forever, right?
He keeps extending his own his office term.
Yeah, it's kind of he's our glorious president. Okay?
He's a quote unquote democratic leader.
How old is Putin actually?
I think he's
70. He's turning 70.
Really?
Yeah.
He looks super young.
He's gonna get like some cyber brain or some shit and be like,
get a cyber brain.
I am the intelligence of Russia.
Putin was deployed.
Oh yeah, but I agree that like
network extends to your area.
That we
Putin coverage 5G.
We did what we could in Afghanistan. You know what I mean? To like get out of the conflict, and like we were kind of dealt a shit hand, you know? But I think it like with foreign policy, especially
Delta shit, Omicron shit.
Operation Delta shit hand is a
I mean, shit hand, I guess, is a good explanation for it, because I think I do agree with the criticisms of the move, But the thing is, we literally had no other option.
We had to do
besides-
something.
Yeah, it's like, I think that was the best option.
Yeah.
Despite it just because it has negatives to it or it has downsides doesn't mean that it
was
wasn't-
going to be messy regardless.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter.
And people, you know, I think it's okay to criticize it, but you have to recognize that, like, if Trump was in office versus Biden, because I think that's the main point that a lot of people make during this kind of argument.
People are saying it about Ukraine too.
Yeah, it's like, what do you want us to
Trump
do?
wanted to let Ukraine get bombed. He
seen a
would
lot
have
of-
helped Putin.
I've seen a lot of criticism of NATO for doing this kind of thing, but honestly, I think they handled it as best they could.
Yeah.
You know, being NATO, I think they do have to kind of police this kind of situation. I don't agree with, you know, the entirety of it, because I think they should have, I mean, they were back and forth with Ukraine being in NATO for like a while.
Yeah.
And Ukraine was also back and forth on it. It's just a situation that was a lot of hot water since 2014. And now it's just kind of climaxed because when they were about to get into NATO, Russia's now like, this is the time to act.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the whole thing. It's like the timing, because like Russia is like a weak state in terms of its allies and its like availability of
China.
like resources and shit. Yeah, he is. They kind of have China on their side. You know, China has a lot of partnerships.
I don't
with
feel
us.
like anyone knows what the fuck China is doing.
Yeah, they move.
Well, they're like a superpower at this point.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what they do.
super independent
I mean, it does
power.
matter what they do, but they're not going to, I'm going to say this and also knock on wood, but I don't think they're going to get directly involved. They may
Yeah, their
provide
pollution will
support
like
to
smoke
Russia.
out their whole country or something, and then all just carbon monoxide poisoning or
Yeah.
something.
Well, like sanctions could honestly hurt them pretty badly too.
Oh, yeah.
But then they could also sanction us and hurt us pretty badly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, that's the thing. Sanctioning them would really just hurt us because
Yeah.
we rely on China a lot.
Double negative.
No.
well, I guess it would be a double negative, because it would be a negative feedback loop. We sanction them and they sanction us, and then we both kind of get fucked from that.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, true.
It's just really just a measurement of who gets fucked more.
Well, yeah.
and
We would
who,
probably
what I
get
was-
fucked
yeah, I
more
was
too,
saying
to be
who can
honest.
survive the longest under that sanction. It's just a battle of attrition between the two countries, and nobody wants
They
that.
don't
That's
even
what
need
it
to
is.
sanction us back in order for it to damage us, though, is my point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Wars of attrition are honestly one of like the worst
Situations.
like, yeah, one of the worst situations to possibly have, because it's just you're constantly siphoning resources from resources that it will eventually no longer exist. You can't refill those, and it's just you're just sitting there slowly starving out, hoping
Yeah.
they die of hunger first. Essentially,
Yeah,
it's
and
a very fucked scenario.
It's the citizens that get affected by it mostly.
Mhm.
The
Yeah,
governments,
absolutely.
the governments don't need this. Like if all of America's people died, or like all the civilians died, there would still be government officials who are like living lavishly. You know,
well, they'd be kind of
they're-
fucked, though.
and they're fucking no,
general,
they got
they
like
literally-
those self-sustaining bunkers and shit. They don't give a damn.
yeah, but like they don't have any power or anything, and that's kind of what they care about.
they can roll their own little bunker.
well, they need. Yeah,
They can
I mean,
be-
it's
Yeah.
The Putin of the
'Cause, like,
bunker.
they
the
need
thing is,
people to
it's-
support
it's
them.
all a calculation. You know what I mean? Like Putin.
How many people
like,
can we lose?
Yeah,
acceptable
absolutely.
casualties.
And it's fucked up, but like that's
It's true.
kind of like that's like the game that people are playing, because like at the end of the day, on
At
like
the end of the day, it's Ender's Game.
no,
you know?
on like a global scale, you know, everyone is just kind of like doing shit. You know what I mean? Like in reality, there's no laws or anything. You know what I mean? It's other countries
Yeah.
that have to hold people accountable.
I
or
fucking
else, like,
hate this server, man.
it's an anarchy.
This MMO sucks ass.
We're on the anarchy server, bro. We're on one.
Welcome to the oldest anarchy server in the universe.
Earth.
The Russia faction has now declared. I'm not even going to make a joke about that. Well, something that I don't necessarily
Too soon.
understand is the whole idea of like war crimes. How does that actually affect a country? You know,
Because it's something so savage that everyone is like at their core disgusted by it. It becomes a war crime.
What do you
It
mean?
gets-
what?
What do you mean? How does it affect?
So
the
like
country?
Russia is not in NATO. So what if NATO describes Russia as like the things that they're doing as committing war crimes? Because I don't know the actual war crime international laws. I don't
Right.
know what is actually
I
considered
know
a
quite
war
a
crime.
bit.
something to think about is that what's it called? Like, so for instance, with the Holocaust, right? If when they were charging the people who were involved in the Holocaust, it's like, who do you charge with what?
responsibility
like,
for whatever happened.
Well,
How far up the line does the chain of command take? Like, where does this order come from? Who
and that
should
was
be the
whole
most
thing
responsible?
with the Nuremberg trials, right?
Yeah, it was a huge debate. Yeah. And
because I was just taking orders.
It was mostly case by case, because obviously there are some Nazi like foot soldiers who probably did some heinous and fucked up shit that should be charged. Like
but if they dejected, they would have died.
What do you mean?
Like if they didn't do these orders and they fled the military, they'd probably get shot on command or like.
That's not even necessarily true, though, because people made that claim, but there was research like during the Nuremberg trials, there was like research done on like, what happened to a Nazi soldier that didn't follow commands. Like they would just move them to like another post.
So they didn't actually get punished.
Yeah.
Or I guess case by case again.
They might get reprimanded, but they're not going to get shot. You know what I mean?
They're still useful to the war effort.
Yeah, exactly.
There's still the fear that anything could happen.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But that doesn't just because you're afraid.
I'm not advocating that it's okay to do anything of it, but I completely understand.
Winning defense for Nazis yet again.
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand that it's like it's a really fucked situation that you really have to go case by case by. But like the Nuremberg trials is exactly what I was kind of expecting in a like this quote unquote war crime debate.
Well, it can't happen until the conflict is over. Yeah,
So like, how do they actually impose these war crime? What do you call it? Punishments. Like, how do they actually do this?
It's the same thing as the Nuremberg trials.
Do they just continue sanctions? Do they just put people on trial?
You try to find like what's going on, get to the source. It's essentially just a judicial system that's put in place
like a world stage judiciary system.
Yes. It depends on like what happens to the government officials, right? Like, because you wouldn't continue to punish a country necessarily like after a war or something, because like that's probably going to be extremely damaging to them and cause a lot of resentment, like, and the country's going to be fucked, and like it doesn't even benefit you really anymore to do that, and it's like, and it also depends on like who gets punished and for what,
just managing relationships. It's just
how do they even find like
simulator.
Say the war is actually over, how do we actually punish Putin himself?
It depends on the commands.
I don't know how we would go about doing that, because
I don't expect us to know, but it's just
a tough scenario. It really is.
I don't know if leaders that high, like, I think he would have to do something that was illegal in his own country to like actually get.
I feel like the only punishment that Putin would realistically receive is the backlash of his own country essentially suffering from the consequences of his actions.
Would it have to be more internally that this happens?
Most likely. Especially because like the higher you go up in the government scale, there's enough protections that will guarantee your life and shit like that.
Yeah, I mean, with Putin in office, he can probably just make laws that say he's forever God King.
Yeah, I think
with God King Emperor,
it might be a little different just because he kind of acts in like a dictator fashion. Like he does. He's just an authoritarian, so it's like any move that you try to make against him, he's probably going to do something to fight, anything he can to fight against it,
Yeah.
He's like 32 clones as backup or something,
He's got clones.
He got the fucking Cyberlink or whatever the fuck.
Conspiracy theories that he died a while ago. I think
probably
there's conspiracy like that with like Nicki Minaj.
That sounds really similar to the Hattori Hanzo lineage of like these ancient ninjas, and basically the leader of the clan would always take up the same name, so that way it essentially perpetuates this legend of this one ninja has lived for eternity, essentially.
And it's just different dudes.
It's just different people upholding the name.
Imagine you're like 12 years old and your dad's like, "You are now me. Good luck.
Here's my social security card and a gun."
Yeah.
Train.
Train.
He blows his fucking brains out.
I can't be me anymore. You are now me.
Well, to keep the guys going, that's what they'd have to do, or else there's two of them.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, otherwise, or like he could just be like, "I'm retiring. You be me.
I'm going to go to Fiji.
I'm going to Haiti."
It's really, I mean, obviously whatever is happening over there is very disgusting, but just seeing the American discourse about it just makes me even more angry about the situation, because we don't know how to handle shit at all.
Yeah, no.
And I think it's mostly because in our generation, we haven't had any war come to home. I mean, the last American attack was literally like Pearl Harbor.
Because we fucking scared them off.
I know, probably 9/11. No.
Oh yeah, 9/11. I completely forgot about 9/11. What? The cardinal sin.
We were talking about war crimes. You're about to.
Yeah. Well, big faults on my end, but my point I think still stands is like we generally don't have any.
We've always reacted to like attacks on us with a certain level of fanaticism that I think that it's hard to even attack the U.S. without getting like if the U.S. is ever attacked, I feel like it'd be possible to just uber rally support for whatever movement that the government would try to do.
Especially with NATO, since we're such like a key part of it, we would definitely be able to get like the rest of the NATO nations and like the UN.
We probably wouldn't even need that. Like America has like one of the strongest and like most advanced militaries in the world.
We don't have to send troops over there. We just send a dude with an Xbox controller.
The U.S.
just send Kyle 15 drinking Dorito Mountain Dew flavor.
They're like, here's a week's they lock them in a room. They're like, here's a week's worth of Doritos and Mountain Dew.
Here, take these Vyvanse and go on the forefront. Take some Ritalin. We'll send you out there.
I mean, honestly, that's essentially what we do on like on a meme scale.
Yeah.
I mean, we do have troops over there right now. I don't know if they're actively fighting. That's something I'm kind of unknown about.
Yeah. But I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns right now.
I do know that we have troops over there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I can really say is like, I'm hoping that we don't get directly involved. I hope that we're there mostly just for support and like maybe medic supplies and shit.
Right.
Maybe, I mean, I'm okay with supplying weapons at this point because of Russia's, how big fucking Russia's military is. They're going to attack no matter what.
Supplying like Belarus and all their other fucking, and Crimea.
Yeah. As long as my mom doesn't get resent to the military, I'll be happy. I'm okay.
Why would your mom get sent?
Isn't she like, how old is she?
She's retired though, right?
I mean, yeah, but
Can you not get
I have no idea how the laws work with that.
Pretty sure like once you reach a certain age, like that's.
I think she's within the reasonable age of going back.
I don't know draft laws.
Yeah, neither do I.
Wasn't born in a draft time, so I'm not sure. I mean, I know I definitely am like
draftable
as a healthy male.
I'm a young draftable.
I mean, we're literally in selective service.
I'm breedable and draftable. Yeah, we are in selective.
That's your new Tinder bio, a draftable young male.
Something like if you're in an education, they won't take you out.
Probably not.
I thought there was something like that.
Yeah, I read up on that because I was actually kind of curious. Last night I got kind of sad and I looked up draft laws, but
this is it. I don't think we're actually going to get drafted. For a while, but.
I really doubt it, but like just in case I want to know my rights. So I figured I'd read up on them now.
I want to know where I can flee.
Yeah.
I would probably dodge. I'm Q dodging this one.
Bro, I'm about to alt F4.
I'm not playing Breeze again.
But yeah, going back to the draft laws.
You're the problem. You're exactly what I'm making fun of.
Going back to the draft laws, supposedly that it can be extended for the end of the semester, but if you're a senior, it can be extended to the end of the academic year.
Okay. So I got to take my master's early. It's generally just a fuck situation.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. Hopefully it'll be done relatively quickly. Small little skirmish, maybe 5 years, something like that.
Another thing is like the whole leftist dialogue, because, America has a huge culture about like political discourse, or I guess a subculture about political discourse, where there's people who are generally completely not in the know about any sort of, world structure of geopolitics or even our own politics. And then there's people who are super involved, especially in other countries' politics, like specifically Russia's in this case, where there's a lot of communists in America that do this, or they support this kind of movement. And they're like, oh, well, NATO was making aggressive movements beforehand. And it's like, well, what do you expect them to do? Do you want them to just let Ukraine get fucking bombed?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's also one thing that people take for granted a lot is that the time scale that this shit happens on too. It's like there are months, years, fucking decades worth of planning that like get put into place before this shit happens, right?
Yeah.
And also even then when you enact it, putting all that shit into place before it even starts takes months, years of fucking prep work.
Yeah.
There is a long ass time frame of just shit that happens. Conflict is going to be inevitable. it's going to take a long ass time for it to happen, and it's going to take a long ass time for it to stop once it starts, because then you have a whole information relay, you have a whole fucking troop movement. Like, imagine walking across or tanking across fucking Russia. Like, how long does that fucking take? It takes me like forever to walk up goddamn stairs.
Well, it's like Canada. Like, half of it is fucking uninhabitable.
Pretty much, yeah. So it's like this conflict is most likely going to be going on for at least a sizable amount of time.
It's been going on
our
since,
day-to-day life.
directly since 2014, but you can probably trace shit back since the fall of the Soviet Union.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about any conflict is like, there's no like clear starting point as to like where it all started.
It's
you know, like
it's some little shit, and then it just slowly escalates
it's like,
from
it's
there.
like 1,000 cuts, and then it all just gives away.
I would say the most
Can we
defining.
cut it down to a montage, please?
We're gonna do a fucking montage.
I want a conflict montage.
a war crime montage.
Oh, God.
I think the defining moment was the two territories that receded from, or like they quote unquote cleared independence from Ukraine.
Oh, you mean Russia annexed them?
Well, yeah, I mean that's the thing. They declared it, quote unquote, declared independence a while ago, but that was literally like, it was influenced by Russia. Like they forged their own kind of vote system, like they do in their own country, saying that a majority of the people wanted to recede from this, and it's like, you know, you don't even know how much that is actually true, because there probably are some nationalists in like for Russia in Ukraine.
Yeah, I think
There's probably no doubt about that. But
especially Eastern Ukraine.
Is it a majority? We will never know. But there's very heavy evidence that they directly influenced that. And then it makes even more sense that they just walk into those territories and they're like, we recognize your independence and we're here for peacekeeping. That was literally their gateway into the country. And then from there, they start bombing the rest of the country.
And something to think about, like, is that they might have, at least historically, like there might be Eastern Ukrainians who are like very much pro-Russia in terms of culture or whatever.
It's because there's
like
whenever
give me
there's
a second
borders,
to say
there's a culture divide.
But like,
sorry, Alex.
Russia. Now I fucking lost it, asshole. But
I won't talk until you finish.
wait, no. Yeah. So since they invaded, they're going to lose like a lot of that support that they have for Russia. You know what I mean? And it's just not going to go well, I think.
Because a lot of the people who are coming out in those territories they're going to be the vocal party that doesn't want to be a part of Russia is going to be way more vocal now.
Yeah. And they're also going to be like, nobody likes to get shelled. And those Eastern areas are the ones that are getting fucked the most.
Yeah, they're the ones that have the most fucking troops of Russian origin in them, of fucking Belarusian origin.
What were we going to say?
Don't care.
You interrupted me. Don't act like that.
The infighting begins.
I'm declaring independence from this podcast.
I'm seceding from the podcast. Welcome to the One Thought podcast.
Yeah, I'm just going to start talking on my own, and I'm going to separate the channels. So that way it's
the One Thought and Two Thought podcast.
So that way we're just running in parallel with each other constantly on the same video.
People would like that.
I think so. Yeah. We'll actually swap to mono, where that one of us is in one ear, the other is in the other.
That'd be so annoying to listen to. Another important point to kind of bring up is like we did a lot of the same shit that Russia's doing right now in the Cold War.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, but so did the Soviet Union.
Yeah,
like,
I'm not saying that they're good in this scenario. I'm just saying that recognize
we can go back to medieval times and be like, oh man, we really just fucking siege catapulted.
Because there's going to be a lot of American nationalists doing the same. I mean, there's always going to be American nationalists doing whatever we do in the world. There's going to be people who think that it's justified in any sort of means. Just like people like the communists in our country now are saying that, oh, it's perfectly fine. You know, I mean, communism as an ideology is its own thing, but people supporting Russia because the people supporting it are communists is like
Putin
kind of
was
ridiculous.
in the Communist Party when he was in the Soviet Union.
Holy shit, guys. Alexander the Great just invaded.
Alexander the Great has dropped.
It's the same exact shit. It's just different time periods. You're going to I wonder if people are going to exemplify the legend of Putin like fucking hundreds of years down the line.
There probably will be people who, I mean, just like American culture is like we in our schools learn that America basically did no wrong during the Cold War.
Oh yeah.
We learned that
we're fighting communism.
Yeah, exactly. We learned that it was literally like the spread of communism throughout the world.
To be fair, the Soviet Union was doing some pretty crazy shit too.
Yeah,
and
Soviet-backed communism was the problem.
But like, you know, the problem is superpowers using like smaller states as fucking battlegrounds.
Yeah, true
and like,
puppet states in this scenario where they were supplying the idea. I mean, Vietnam, I think, is a perfect example where like the communist part and then like the I guess the democratic part. I don't actually know what governmental system they had that we were supporting.
I never knew Vietnam existed.
Where even is it?
Oh, where the hell is fucking this lake?
I think it was I could be getting this wrong because there was the North Vietnam and South Vietnam. I think one of them was communist and then one of them was either conservative or democratic or something.
I think
like
it was the South that was more democratic, where the North was communist, and then we supported the South, but then other parties supported the North, and so then it was essentially us fighting by proxy through Vietnam and supporting those troops before eventually we had to get involved, and then it all just escalated, derailed, and crashed off the fucking course. It Paul Walkered itself into oblivion.
And like I get the sentiment of being like anti-war and like war is bad, but it's like sometimes it's justified. Like it's absolute. I think like as a response, you know what I mean? To something going on, like joining the war effort, like during the Holocaust was justified. Absolutely.
Yeah. There needs to be a sufficient like threat. Yeah. Otherwise you can't.
Well, threat or I think humanitarian abuses personally.
Yeah. I mean, war serves the same purpose as the existence of nukes. It's a deterrent. And I feel like that's the kind of stance that we have taken like as a whole.
Well, it's not necessarily a deterrent because it also
absolutely is a deterrent.
Well, that's one part of it, right? Because it's also used like to bolster the economy, gain more power in like a global system. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of aspects to it, but definitely deterrent is an aspect.
Yeah, it's meant to like keep relationships essentially in line.
Yeah.
I feel like we've realized that we can't control everything, so we better maintain what we have. And war is oftentimes used as a deterrent or as like, we need to go to war because we can't maintain the status quo, essentially, unless we do.
Or dude, like when Andre or whatever always talks about how
Kosovo seceded.
Dog, they were genociding Bosnians.
And like Serbian nationalism is like the direct equivalent of the same kind of scenario where it's like there's very obvious rights and wrongs. It just depends on how much you were actually propagandized.
Yeah.
Based on where you're from. And I understand that being I don't think he's actually from Serbia, but his parents are.
Yeah.
So he's obviously going to be very inclined to whatever Serbia thinks. And like as an American in Europe, you're probably going to be like, oh yeah, America's coming to help and everything like that.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
America's here. Wait, why are they dropping presents?
Dropping presents for us. That's a big present. It's kind of
tubular.
It's the same kind of situation, kind of copy and pasted everywhere, where there's a nationalistic party that gains control over something, and then it's the two opposing forces fighting because of like literal propaganda. And it's based on what they actually do that people don't actually understand.
Information is like I think a huge aspect to like war because you use it to bolster your own support, like within your country for whatever war effort you're making. And you can use information to try and attack like the what's it called? Like the support of the war in another nation, like with tankies and shit supporting Russia and just fucking like scooping up that RT propaganda into their fucking asshole.
Rooster teeth propaganda.
They're boofing RT right now, dude.
And that's the main point I was going to bring up earlier about American media is like why people were so hesitant on Russia actually doing this is because America was bolstering Russia up to actually go through with this. And no one believed them because they thought that Russia themselves weren't even going to do it, even though they were clearly like gearing up towards this. But it's the same nationalistic kind of ideal where we don't actually know what is genuinely happening because I guess we don't know what's happening until it actually happens. Like in this scenario, because we could have believed the American government and the media that was, going on about everything pre-invasion. And we could have seen this coming from a mile away. But just because of the distrust, because of Russia doing kind of the same kind of media in their own country, doing the same thing to their own, I guess, nationalists, it's the same situation, but there's two different sides that are very clearly right and wrong in this scenario.
Yeah, I don't know. The thing is like,
it's really muddy.
It's really hard to also like impose, I think, like morals on it necessarily, because like at the end of the day, like Putin just has a strategy. He has like a goal, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the morality or whatever is going to be judged based on his own perception, or like the nationalist perception of like, we want the Russian Federation back. We want, more global power or whatever.
Yeah. There is an interesting parallel that can be pulled here from literally D&D. I've been doing a lot more research into the campaign and stuff because I feel like I've wanted to get more into it. If you guys have noticed during the last couple sessions, I'm kind of out of it. I'm not really like...
Well, school started again, so I didn't really expect you. Plus, our sessions are kind of short, so I'm not like expecting you to
short,
do full...
but they're 4 hours long.
Well, we do a lot of... we hang out for 4 hours, but the sessions haven't been lasting that long just because we eat first, we hang out.
Yeah. But one of the interesting parallels that I can draw from here is the alignment system. But yeah, believe it or not, there was an interesting take
to
on
generalize.
Putin is lawful evil.
No, there is an interesting take that I saw on the alignment system where that it was by Matt Mercer, who is a very famous voice actor. He's done a lot of stuff. He also runs a D&D podcast, which is very good, called
Shout out Matt Mercer.
But the way he brought it up is that alignments in like good and evil, he saw a concept where it's run culturally instead of like objectively good, objectively evil. And like, say your culture exemplifies like these great warriors, and you meet someone who's just a great warrior. They are good in your eyes, but you could meet like the nicest little fucking halfling, like little orc,
little
whatever.
femboy.
Yeah, you can see a little femboy, catboy, and like they're evil on your scale because, well, they're a fucking pussy, right?
Yeah, they're not a glorious.
They don't fit into your cultural ideal of good.
Yeah,
and I think that's a really interesting take on it because I kind of dislike the whole objectiveness of the alignment scale and. Yeah, that's pretty much it. But it is interesting seeing how like each country's cultures essentially they dictate, like, oh, this act is, I feel like we're working towards an objective morality, but we are still confined by this cultural morality that we've created.
I don't know how much Russian culture is actually focused on reuniting the Soviet Union.
I'm not 100% sure on Russian culture, but it is interesting to see the parallels that I can put.
Because I don't think there is an objective morality to the situation. I mean, I still believe in general that there's an objective, moral world that we can live in. But in a situation like this, it really is based on just the country that you're from and how you view your country's actions.
Yeah. I don't think I believe in objective morality.
It's very, very, because like it's been misconstrued a lot, I believe.
Like, I understand you're saying that like different cultures obviously have different perceptions of what morality is.
Yeah, I mean, look at that whole like Cannibal Island. Like like that.
That's perfectly fine for them. Yeah.
To us, that's like some weird atrocity, But to them, this is just fucking Tuesday.
Yeah, but it's like I just don't know. Like, because I think like saying that there is an objective morality that exists, like it's like are we working towards it? Do you think?
I believe that's always the goal, but
so like what is like an objective moral statement that
we've been over this?
Okay,
it's impossible to find. We will never know within our lifetimes. And
it would be something that we generate on our own.
Yeah,
it would have to be something that we establish.
Well, then how's that objective?
Yeah, maybe it isn't objective, but in terms of a global society like that, it would have to be objective. We would have to. I feel like
objective morality can only be obtained by one observer. So it's like you yourself exist within this space and you've created your own objective morality. But the moment you connect it to a grander scale, your own like objectiveness fails to uphold. There is no objectivity on a multi-person scale.
Yeah. I agree that I agree with what you're saying, Anthony, or like your general mindset towards it, where like the idea of being truly objective may not ever actually come to exist. But the thing is, like, having it subjective is also not necessarily the true, perspective on it, because we have to have some sort of groundwork in general for it.
Well, I mean, like, I think that there is a lot of philosophical groundwork that you can lay in a subjective framework, you know what I mean? That can like allow you to have like a a very positive society. You know what I mean? Like, I think generally people agree you shouldn't murder people, you shouldn't rape people.
That's also
like,
general, but that itself is subjective within its own philosophical argument.
But there are things that are easier to agree upon than others because humans are social creatures. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot more in common culturally and like morally that people have than I think a lot of people think.
It's philosophically acceptable to attain objective morality by scorching the entire fucking earth.
But that doesn't make it. What do you mean by that? That doesn't I don't, because I didn't agree with what you said earlier when you said that like it's objective in your own head. But then when other people are involved, then it's not objective anymore. Because when it's in your own head and you only have one perception, that is just subjective. It's
basically saying that any time you come up with something that is perceived as objective, it only works within your own perfect world that you essentially create. If you are no longer,
but that doesn't make it objective.
If you are no longer the creator of said universe and you're sharing it and it's like a collective building, it becomes harder and harder to obtain. Like, still, I'm fucking
losing the train of thought.
I mean, like, because all I would say is like I don't think morality exists in a vacuum, like you're saying. You know what I mean?
I feel like it does. It can only be created in also a world where there can only be this, right?
Well, the point that I want to perpetrate is I think I'm kind of in between you guys. I think morality doesn't exist in a vacuum because it is a social construct. It's how we as humans decide what is right and what is wrong. So keeping that in mind, that's the subjective aspect of it. We have to understand that as a society, as a global society, we have to make some sort of ground laws like this. Philosophy in general is a science, which means that there is some sort of truth to it. There's something that we can gain and we can teach other people about what it means to be human, what it means to, treat each other with kindness and whatever. And yeah, that does differ in a lot of different cultures because people are going to say, well, they did this. I think it's justified to do this to them. But in a third party scenario, it might be completely observed differently. I mean, just like with any conflict, any war. But that's the idea, is like we all have to kind of decide on this groundwork. And that's what I view as quote unquote objective morality. Objective within a society that we create, which, isn't inherently subjective, but also is subjective.
To further expand on my thought process, because that itself was just kind of like shit can thing.
Yeah, your thoughts.
The one observer part, it implies that there are no opposing bodies to that.
On an island.
It needs to be a single entity, and that thing doesn't necessarily have to be, one person, but something of the same mind, essentially, people who share that belief.
And that's the kind of whole idea with the UN and NATO. That's what they're working towards, a more globalistic idea of what is good and what is bad. So if someone disagrees with something, there's more discussion on it. Yeah, there's discourse about what they decide is good and bad. Or what is morally correct and what is immoral. That's
why I think it's good to have the perspective that like morals are just kind of subjective, because then you can create the system that's more beneficial to people without having to signal to like some God or some objective sense of like what's right or wrong.
Well, yeah, it's like, what do you do when you've established said objective truth and it no longer upholds? Then all along it was subjective in the first place.
Well, yeah, it just wouldn't be objective. I mean, like I just don't think objective morality exists.
I think the objective term is basically what I'm just using loosely to describe the matter. I think, pure objectivism is not ever going to be the case unless there is some God looking over and is like, yeah, that's correct. You guys are doing good.
I'm fucking agreeing with you guys now that I realize it. I'm saying that objectiveness only exists within a vacuum, and it itself can't exist within like a larger scale, but everything else besides that it's just not objective. There's no objectivity to be held. The moment we involve more than one person, more than one party,
I see what you're saying.
There's no one to challenge that authority.
Yeah, because you'd be God in that
essentially.
Sense.
Someone would have to be looking at Earth and saying that this is good, this is bad. Because,
well, no, not even that, but you in terms of the universe.
In terms of being objective, you kind of have to have this third party, and being on Earth, if we were to truly attain like a global society, there would have to be some sort of third entity to say that this is you guys are doing objective.
Good old big brother.
But then in that case too, there would have to be like a governing body of Earth and then other places that aren't Earth, you know?
And I mean, I don't know. The thing is though, is that like, even, you know, like the UN, it's not even a global government. You know what I mean? Like it's a framework.
Like 2/3 government.
Yeah. Well, it's like a framework of like partnership and discourse. You know what I mean?
But it's something that can be built upon.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But I just like, I think it's, I don't know. I just can't. It's really hard to imagine a world that is like controlled by a single like global entity. You know what I mean? Like, I think like it makes sense to have like a structure in place that allows debate and allows cooperation, allows the baby. We need more DeBaby in Ukraine. Never mind.
The baby supports Ukraine. War ended. Crisis
I don't think he knows what's going on. He's too busy fighting people in a bowling alley.
Let's go.
Dude, that shit was so funny.
In general, like when I speak about objective morality, I don't necessarily mean that there is something that is, in a vacuum that it exists. What I mean mostly is like what we're working towards specifically is like a government that is more centered. It's more unified. Yeah. Maybe not something that is controlled as like another level. Like there's not going to be like a couple governors controlling Earth or anything like that. It's more based. We're going to always have to have this situation where it's like the countries and the sovereign nations are communicating with each other. And with that case, there's always going to be conflict like that. So it's important that we have to act as the UN and NATO has to act as a third party, quote unquote, in these kinds of situations, because they will act as that third party, that overseeing eye, because they're discussing it with the world. In that case, they're discussing it with other sovereign nations who may not even be involved directly. Yeah.
If we truly stop working in NATO and like any form of governing body with self-interest at heart, it'd probably work out better for us, I'd imagine. Because then it's no longer
self-interest.
If we stopped working with the idea of self-interest, we're like, I need to protect my people.
And because
I just need to protect the people.
Yeah. Because of how new this kind of government is, it's like, how little we've actually used it and how, new it actually is in the world stage. Yeah. We're only using it for selfish means. We're only using it as like a glorified
governments are just possessive boyfriends.
No, I think it's more than that. Like they're because like, the UN does like provide a lot of aid and does actually provide like a lot of like an actual place for like discussions and negotiations to be had.
I shouldn't say that it's just that, but it just with how new it is, there's not, it's not to its fullest extent by any means.
I totally agree with that. Cause it only has as much power as like the individual member states have, you know what I mean? And like how much they're willing to uphold it, because like a lot of even like member states sometimes break rules of like, NATO regulations or whatever. And I don't even know if they get like reprimanded or anything. But it's like, international structures are good. They need more teeth,
Yeah. We need a lot more work on them before they can actually, and that's what when you always bring about, when you bring up talking about like working towards this kind of objective morality, that's what I mean.
Yeah. Well, I just don't know if there's anything to work towards. Like we can at
least the global aspect of it, like working in a UN and NATO situation that is beneficial for the world instead of just the individual parties that are meeting. Yeah, right. Because they basically use it as a meeting, and they do provide aid, they do help. But there's way more that we can do with it.
Yeah. Well, it's just, people like at the end of the day, like you said, like people are selfish. You know what I mean? Like countries are going to act in their self-interest, whether you like it or not, and because it's kind of, it makes no sense for a leader of a country to worry about the people of another country. It's
the whole idea of self-preservation being perpetuated. It's just,
I get it, but it's just like,
like it's a valid, it's valid. Yeah, it really is.
It's just like, it's not the reality, sadly.
The thing is, if America wants to do something and it's obviously something that's really fucked up, other countries will say you shouldn't do that. But America can just do it anyways,
American can get away with a lot.
They can just do whatever they want because it's their own fruition to do so. Yeah.
And they're also like one of the most powerful.
We're just manifesting our destiny.
Yeah. We need the global American Federation.
Don't tell America that.
Make it all Ohio.
The world will become
Abolish the borders. Ohio's taking over. We've been preparing for the millennia on this.
Ohio doesn't have any borders, so it just expands.
It just becomes.
Ohio subsumes.
We've got NATO
taking over Pennsylvania.
NATO has surrendered to Ohio.
Ohio annexed Chicago.
Oh my God. I saw a map of people, like
Ohio,
they asked everyone they asked everyone like, where do you think Ukraine is in the world? Yeah. It's like literally there's like a couple dots in Australia. It's like, what is wrong with
America?
You? Yeah.
It's so bad.
I couldn't tell you where Ukraine is.
Yeah, but it's in Europe.
Yeah,
I know.
I know it's in the big chunk over there, but like where? No.
And I think that's fine.
Probably close to Russia.
Geography
is very important, I think.
I think geography is very
hate geography.
Why?
Geography is really important for understanding foreign disputes, like between countries, because like
you can see it in the borders.
It's that, and also just like controlling certain locations for like strategic gain. You know what I mean? Like there are certain airports or refineries or whatever that are like built up around certain areas that they're definitely going to focus.
There's a level of depth to that geography that you have to understand though to get to those some of those realizations.
Not really. Obviously, if you have an intimate understanding of let's take it Afghanistan for example. If you have an intimate understanding of Afghanistan,
push up. He's getting serious. Oh God! If you
have an intimate understanding of Afghanistan geography, you're probably going to have a way better understanding of the whole conflict in general. I'd absolutely agree with that. However, if you, let's say like you go on foreignpolicy.com and you look up like an article about it's a good website. And you look up like an article about like the Biden pullout of Afghanistan or whatever. And it mentions how, we pulled out of Bagram and we focused our troops in Kabul and like all these other things. Like, if you look at the map, you could see why they're making these decisions.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because like Bagram is a very inaccessible base and it's very far from the American embassy, right? So it's like Kabul houses the American embassy and it has the biggest international airport in Afghanistan. So it's like, obviously these are the correct moves to make. Yeah. And it's like, you don't need a super intimate understanding of Afghanistan geography to get that.
That's fair. Yeah. Okay.
After
like points of interest, POIs.
Yeah, exactly.
After learning about these kinds of, like you see like how rivers and how rivers shape the actual borders and like how arbitrarily Europe drew a bunch of different borders in the world. It's like you can completely understand why there's conflict in a lot of these things. That's why a lot of African nations have civil wars and shit going on right now. Yeah. So I think a good example of that is something like Crimea. I didn't know where Crimea was before, Russia actually annexed it. But looking at it on a map, I'm like, it's literally like a peninsula that has it's like one
very
sliver.
East of Ukraine.
Yeah, right? Very. It's and also has a great access point to like I guess water, a sea.
Yeah, because I mean, like, especially like down in that region, like it just makes it way easier to transport ships and shit, and I think like anytime you're reading about like something that's like foreign policy related or whatever, or like a foreign conflict, literally just pull up Google Maps and like look at the fucking locations that they're talking about.
That's fair. I'll turn that into a fun little game.
I think
I'll watch this war with great interest.
I find that kind of shit so interesting because
it is actually super interesting.
It's military strategy. It's like, it's foreign fucking disputes.
I'm understanding a lot this year. I'm happy for the new year. I understand football now. I get war.
Dude, I get war.
You're becoming a true American.
Hell yeah, brother.
I think in general, geography is super cool to just kind of research and understand yourself, because as an American, they don't teach you jack shit about geography. I remember my
like up until
class.
Elementary.
Well, I think my last one was in 5th grade or something.
I didn't have any geography lessons.
Really?
It was literally like, we're talking about this conflict, and then they show us a map of the conflict of what's going on. And it's like,
and it's like a literal sliver
like
and barely any lines or anything.
It's like cool.
Fucking horrible.
I feel like that'd be such an interesting fucking class if you were just to make it be like understanding war tactics.
That's definitely a class.
No, for sure. That's like some specialized.
I mean,
class.
I'm in a class called Causes of War right now.
Oh,
which
really?
Is actually really interesting.
Don't care. Didn't ask.
It's a lot of geography, I bet.
It's more theory, to be honest.
Oh,
But
okay.
there's definitely geography in it.
Okay.
It's just more focused.
It's not like actual history more so,
Well,
or
no,
it's learning from history.
It's because a lot of political science is just case studies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's really hard to like run an experiment. Like, okay, Russia, you go to war with Ukraine, and we'll go to war with Japan, and we'll see what happens. You know.
Yeah. And general geography is super interesting, especially when you look at it from like a geopolitical lens, because you can literally see if you had like a topographical and like, I guess, geographical map of a country, you can clearly see where there would be conflicts.
Yeah.
And like 90% of the time there are conflicts, especially in a lot of borders, like I said before, drawn by Europe.
I take that shit for granted. I do that shit all the time in like Arma.
It's generally super interesting, and it leaves you a lot of you have any situation going on in real time or the future, you automatically know what's going on. Like you can make an educated guess on why they're doing this, what's going on here. It just all starts to make sense, and then you start to understand actual geopolitics, global politics.
I feel like even with my current capabilities, it might just be like narcissism, confidence, petty belief.
Nationalism.
I feel like, I could ham fist enough geographical knowledge that I could understand.
I mean, to be honest, like, I just think I think most people just don't like read anything, like
That's
in
fair.
terms of like news shit. They kind of like,
Are they really obligated
guilty
to,
of
though?
it. I'm guilty of this too. Wait, what'd you say?
Are they like really obligated to, though?
No, nobody's obligated to do anything, but it's really annoying when people make a lot of broad claims and say dumb shit and haven't read a goddamn word of anything. Cause like they'll just eat up like what either people on Twitter say or content creators say. And like I said, I'm definitely guilty of this too.
I love Twitter.
But like after, yeah, I do too. But after like, if you like read like an article, like from top to bottom, like even on like fucking foxnews.com or whatever, you know what I mean? Like you will probably be like more informed than like 90% of people, because like in like newsprint, like you can't say like all the crazy shit that like you could say on TV. Like you can get away with a lot more on TV because you can hide behind the guise of entertainment. You know what I mean?
It's just a joke, bro.
How do you get away with that shit?
There's no like journalism laws. It doesn't really matter.
Well, there's journalism practices like that, like a HIPAA type thing, or not HIPAA, but a Hippocratic oath for journalism.
But there's
I'm
an oath
sure.
for engineers too. Did you know that? Yeah, it's fucking weird.
Because if we build a bridge that's shit,
shit.
If you build a bridge that's garbage ass, and you're like, let's just put it out there, people will die. Like you can't.
Only a couple thousand,
It's all right.
couple hundred maybe.
It's cheap for a while. Anyways, that's the podcast. Hope the people in Ukraine are doing well.
Yeah, this was a bummer one, but it's okay.
I think it's important to talk about this kind of stuff, even
Oh,
though
yeah,
we're
for sure.
Americans not directly involved. I think it's
and
good
not
to get
experts.
the discourse
We're
out
not
there.
experts. We're not experts. We're not experts.
Yeah.
This is not financial advice.
We are not funded by
You guys
Russia.
want to go fuck each other and skip the draft? Gays can't get drafted?
Wait,
Gays?
really?
Not in Russia, though. Gays get drafted as hell.
Drafted as fuck.
Yeah, I looked
You're
that up.
super drafted.
Yeah, I literally looked that up. Putin did not exclude the gays from the draft in like 1980 something.
So we're gonna be homophobic as fuck and like fucking kill you and shit. But you can join our war. You can fight for us.
See you guys.
Bye, Russia.